based on whatever disorder you're treating or based on the person. You take culture and cultural background into account as well too. Most people don't adapt to one style. Like, I mean, there's some people that are like, I'm purely cognitive behavioral, right? Okay. And I do really like cognitive behavioral. It's kind of my go-to.
Really?
But I'm not closed off to other possibilities or other effective ways to conceptualize or treat somebody's problem. Okay? I think that all the different perspectives and approaches have something to offer, and they all make sense to me. So I'm not going to put myself in one box of, like, I have to adhere to this style. Okay.
That's cool then, because at least you can mix.
Yeah, I'm not pure Freudian. I'm not pure humanistic. I'm not pure anything. I think all the approaches, they have something to offer, and to pick and choosing, and that's where training comes in to know when it's appropriate, like what treatment is appropriate to treat what disorder, let's say. And like that's where the research comes in, to kind of inform your decisions. You can't just go, I think, okay, you're suffering from depression, let's try this, and just willy-nilly pick something. You have to make sure that you're trained and well-informed on the issues. So,
that's so cool.
So yeah, it's more of an integrative perspective.
Okay.
And which is what you're getting now too. Every chapter is a new perspective, and even within chapters, we're learning about like even today, personality. We talked about many different viewpoints on it. So there's not. That's why I like psych. There's not always one right or wrong way to look at it.
That is cool. How there's like it's not necessarily concrete on which direction to go.
Because human beings are not concrete.
No.
So.
Oh goodness. One last question. Have you always wanted to pursue this field in psychology?
No.
No? What was like your first...
Well, remember, computer science was before psychology, but I mean, I remember growing up wanting to be a lawyer.
Really?
Yeah, and then I wanted to be... I think at one point I did want to be a teacher, though. I remember as a kid, like, playing school with all my stuffed animals, like, lining them up and teaching them things. What else did I want to... I mean, I wanted to do other stuff. The law thing, though, it just... Once I found out how boring it is, I kind of ruled that out. It wasn't, just kind of, I mean, I can argue well, but it just wasn't for me. I never even took one law class.
Really?
But I think maybe it was more my parents wanted me to be a lawyer than I wanted to be a lawyer. But yeah, I remember, I wanted to be a librarian, and I wanted to be a fighter when I was really young.
So it changed, I mean, it changes for everyone, I think, all the time.
I would say, like, from after I made the switch as a freshman in college from computer science to psychology, that's been it for me. It's been the fit.
That's really cool. At least because a lot of people, they never really find like their true like niche in the world.
Yeah. But who knows? I mean, gosh, I'm still fairly young here, relatively young, and who knows? Could I end up switching in the future? You never know. I don't think I'll be leaving the field of psychology, but like I said, you don't know. But if I can envision myself maybe going back to practice, and I would have to get my license to practice. I'm not currently licensed.
Okay.
Like, I can't be your therapist and your teacher right now. I couldn't even if I was licensed. It's in a dual role. Yeah. I can't know too much.
Oh,
What I learn about you in therapy might affect my grading of you and vice versa.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
But I could see myself maybe going back into the therapy room. Listening to people's problems day upon day.
Did you like that part? Or?
I kind of did because it was very rewarding to help people and to just be there for them and be that kind of unbiased perspective and to provide them with my knowledge and, but at the same time, I have a lot of empathy for people, and it was difficult for me to not take their issues at home and not be thinking about everything at home. And,
oh, wow.
So that was kind of hard for me to do. I think I could have eventually, because going into counseling psych, the problems aren't as severe as clinical psych.
Okay.
So the stuff I was dealing with was like day-to-day stuff, like stress and family problems and relationship issues and career stuff and it was just typical stressors that we have from day to day.
Right.
But even so, like somebody would share something with me in a therapy room that just I would just hang on to,
Oh, wow. That's interesting you said that because we had to take like a strength quest test in SLS, and one of my highest like strengths was empathy.
Yeah, and that can be a blessing, but also a curse, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, empathy is a great thing to have, that sense of oneness with somebody, but if you get sometimes it's hard. Then you got to go home and live your own life and not carry that with you, and that's tough.
Okay, that's something I'll definitely keep in mind as like almost like a sort of negative aspect.
Yeah, I would say, but if you can, over time, you kind of learn to deal and go, this is my job stays here, social life, it's just tough.
Like a doctor who has to go into surgery, something like that.
My husband, he's in clinical psych, had to tell somebody the other day, my husband works with brain injuries, and he had to tell somebody the other day that he was waking up from a coma, or I think it was a medically induced coma, but he was waking up after a car accident, and my husband Brad had to tell him that he was the only one who survived out of
my God.
he and his friends.
That's awful.
Yeah, like that's one of the cons of the job, man. Sometimes you either have to break bad news or you have to hear bad news, and when you have a connection with a client or a patient and they tell you something,
That's rough.
it's rough. Or if you have a patient or a client that commits suicide, something like that, that's going to hit home.
Oh, I
you.
bet.
You're a human being. Of course it is. So that would be one of the cons to it. And maybe that's one of the reasons why teaching. I mean, I have students. I have challenges as a faculty member with students. There was a student in an abusive home life that I had to deal with last term, and she's dual enrolled. She's 17, so we had to get Child Protective Services and involved, and that was a struggle for me. I still have that as a teacher, but just not so much like what you have in one-on-one in a therapy room. I mean, I still make connections with my students, but doesn't quite go that far.
Like the very personal level almost.
Yeah. I mean, some students get personal with me, though.
Yeah. I know.
You should read some of the papers I have to read.
Oh, my gosh. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, flashbulb memory papers.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Oh, my gosh. I can only imagine.
But I mix them up, so I'm not always reading the same papers every time, but it's a little nuts.
That is
crazy. That might be something to think about if you're going psychology, if you're going to go into a practical part of the field like counseling or clinical, that you might find yourself in a therapy room, and there's pros and cons to that. You're helping people.
Right.
But at the same time, your own mental health is important too.
Right.
Sound quality of life.
Wow. That's good. That's a good perspective. I'm glad we did this. So that is all the questions I have for you.
Well, if you think of anything else, you can always send me an email.
Okay.
I can shoot you back if you're realizing you forgot to ask something or you want to just. And you can keep, even when you're not my student anymore, you can keep following up and ask me for questions about the field. And if you're starting to pursue psychology more deeply, are you taking any psych classes next term?
I'm not, only to get my general education out of the way, but
the AAs. We're working on the AA.
Right.
Okay.
But I'm pretty much going to fill most of my electives with like abnormal psych. What other ones? I think there was positive psychology.
Take it with Linda.
With Linda? Okay, I'll have to write that down.
Freeman.
And I think there's like business and psychology. I forget like
industrial organizational.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was another one.
Boring.
Is it boring? Because that was another possible
psychology.
Yeah.
It depends on if you're interested in business.
That was the other major I was planning on going for. Like,
if you like business, how psychology and business might intersect, then you might like that class.
Okay.
Personally, it's not my bag.
Really?
But check out chapter 14 in your textbook. Because we're skipping that for the sake of time, and it's not required for me to teach it. But you could do extra credit on it.
Okay.
If you want, or you can just read it and skim through and see if it sounds interesting.
And that's the more industrial organizational psychology?
That's chapter 14.
That's really cool.
That's the one we're not covering.
I'll have to read that then, because that's like one of the most high-paying psychology besides like psychiatric.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know if I can be a doctor. It's a lot of work.
Well, yeah, psychiatry, it's the MD and then 2 more years of going into psychiatry after that.
Oh my gosh.
So,
So is that 8 or 10 years?
Depends, 8 to 10, depending.
Oh my gosh. That's a lot of money.
Payoff,
a lot of
though,
time.
but then you get all those student loans.
Yeah.
But then you're banking good money.
That's true.
Oh.
Jeez. That's crazy.
Yeah, you could work for a corporation, and you could work like in personnel, like screening employees. You can work in sales or advertising. I mean, it's just, it doesn't connect with me as much. But you can make good money in it. If you're interested in business, that'd be an option. Take that class and see. If you hate it, then you'll know not this one. If you love it, then take another one,
Okay, I'm definitely going to look more into that then.
And are you going to transfer at some point, or are you going to go to UCF?
No, not UCF. I'm not even sure where. It's like up in the air right now, but...
Okay. Well, when the time comes, and you need a letter of recommendation, just remember me. I write glowing
Thank
letter.
you.
You're getting an A in my class, but I'm sure you are right now, right?
Yes.
You doing well?
98, I think.
Oh,
hopefully.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what else might... Okay, so positive psych, Linda Freeman. Developmental?
Mm-hmm.
You take...
Not yet. That's probably my sophomore year.
I honestly recommend taking developmental before abnormal.
Okay. Developmental before abnormal.
I would. Another one would be psychology of adolescence.
Oh, okay.
I teach both of those. I teach developmental and psych of adolescence and abnormal at Seminole. They haven't given me one here yet. But
oh, wow.
I'm going to push for it soon. Yeah, it's just that's kind of like by the time you would then get to abnormal, you've got more of a foundation. Abnormal is a little... Well, you just have to have your knowledge base first before you can really fully appreciate it. And by the way, we cover a lot of chapters in my class that we don't, that some other Gen Psych classes don't cover.
Oh, that's good.
So you're actually you're going to come in with hopefully a strong foundation if I'm your teacher or not. So I love getting students in developmental who had me for general though, and abnormal who had me because I know what you know.
That's true.
And what you don't know. So,
okay, I'm definitely going to keep that in mind. Well, thank you so much
You're
for your
welcome
time.
so much.
I appreciate
no problem. I think I have one or two more of these.
Do you really? That's awesome. Thank you again.
You're welcome.